Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to our dear speaker and participants. Welcome to the fourth InSAF Oil webinar series. And for today's topic, we'll be talking about the model of Kebun Bangsa, food for people, food for the soul. I'm Khalila from Office of Industrial Links, and I will be your host for today. So if this is your first time joining this webinar series, surely you're asking, what is InSAF? Well, InSAF stands for Integrated and Sustainable Agriculture Farming. It is a research group that was established in September 2019 under the International Institute for Halal Research and Training in IIUM, or more commonly known as INHART. InSAF is led by Professor Technologist Dr. Azura Ahmed, a plant technologist, and the research group aims to enhance the culture of an integrated and sustainable farming system based on the Maqasid al-Sharia and Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we will all together virtually visit an urban farm in Bangsa. Now, during the pandemic, I'm sure many of us have noticed that many people started to grow our own backyard farms and started to grow food because we know how important it is to have these food supplies. And we might also have delved into gardening for the joy of being a part of nature. So anyways, if you're here with us in Zoom platform, or you're watching this webinar from the YouTube channel, live stream from the InSAF Real World Laboratory channel, sit back, relax, and maybe put on your gardening hat if you have it with you. So it is our great pleasure today to have Ms. Joanne Man from Kebun Bangsa. So Joanne and I got to know each other from our Think City project several years back. And it's such a delight to see you again, Joanne, on this platform. Allow me to introduce Joanne a bit before she shares her session. So Joanne is a registered architect with New South Wales Architects Registration Board in Australia, and with over a decade of experience in the fields of urban design, master planning, and architecture in Sydney. Upon her return to Malaysia in 2015, she joined Think City as a community architect and led the urban design and planning unit to help rejuvenate the cities of Kuala Lumpur and Penang. Her passion, as you can already tell, is on community empowerment, and she continues to do this after her stint at Think City. And since late 2018, Joanne has been volunteering her services for two nonprofit organizations, which are the YWCA-KL, which provides vocational training to underprivileged adolescent girls, and Kelab Kebun Bandar, which kickstarted and manages Kebun Bangsa and Kebun Kerinci. So let's get on to it. And if you have any questions while Joanne is presenting, you can post the questions in your chat box and we'll address it at the end of the session later. So ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, please welcome Ms. Joanne Man.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalila, for inviting me to this session. Thanks InSAF and IUM, very meaningful, webinar series. So without further ado, let's start with, so there's going to be three components to my talk today. So the first component will be a short video that I've compiled myself. And the reason why I did this myself was because obviously, it's not professional quality, but I want you to see Kebun Bangsa as how I see it. So I've spent a good 3 years in Kebun Bangsa, 3-4 times a week. And, I've picked up, little things that I really like, the features of Kebun Bangsa. So, I've compiled them and, I'm going to share it, as the first part. The second part, I'll be talking, giving you more details about Kebun Bangsa, for about half an hour. And the last part is actually a YouTube video that was prepared by someone else about Kebun Bangsa. And it's actually an interview on Seksan. Because, since he's the founder of Kebun Bangsa, he has, details that, sometimes other people don't know. So I would like you to watch, and listen to what the founder himself, have to say about, a garden that he started. Okay, so maybe we should start with the video now, the short video. It's lagging a little bit.
Chứ biết pha có đấy. Pha ok.
No need the power mouse. You don't think this bit will be going the guideline. This thing has been removed already.
Okay. 5.5, 6.5. You can on it. And then you put it.
The ladies are coming with this week's harvest. from our greenhouse, hydroponic greenhouse. Look at that, how fresh is. What vegetable is this?
Lettuce, I think it's the butter, US butter.
Yeah, this is the pagaga leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually quite a good, because it's bitter, that's why it's good at, it can become a detox juice.
Yeah.
But we need to add apple a bit.
Yeah, because it's too bitter.
Too bitter.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so we're actually blending it.
So much. What is this?
Apple and pagaga juice with calamansi and spearmint.
Wow.
Yeah, the calamansi and the mint pagaga all from your kebun.
Okay. Compost from America. Can you imagine that? So as we also are talking, there's another, because a lot of people when they come and visit this place, they got inspired, they wanted to start their own urban garden. Sri Tamas have started, Medan Damansara also have started very quietly, but they also Bukit Damansara, Taman Desa, Setia Wangsa. So a lot of people are very interested in concepts like this.
So at the end of it, memang dah ada juga, tapi kita sudah mula untuk kita regularize it so that ada standard procedure, standard SOP. Jadi akan menggalakkan orang ramai lagi untuk membuat kerja-kerja sebeginian, dan juga akan authority-authority yang terlibat akan juga boleh bekerjasama untuk memberikan kebenaran dan menggunakan tanah-tanah yang terbiar yang boleh kita manfaatkan pada cara yang baik. Okay.
Okay. That's all for the short video I've compiled. I hope you get a general idea of what Kebun Bangsa looks like. There are some portions that I didn't video, for example, our garden and a vegetable plot and stuff, but, do go down and have a look. But I'm sure, many people has been there because since the lockdown has been lifted, on the weekend we have like a few hundred people, on a weekend morning. So, and the reason why I left the audio on, in the video is because I wanted, you guys to actually feel, like as you can see that as I move on from the main street, past the first wall and gate, you can start hearing, sound of insects. And then as you move in, further, to the second gate, the traffic sound has sort of, disappeared. But you can, sort of hear the chicken and the roosters. And I think that's part of what I enjoy Kebun Bangsa the most. So just sharing my personal experience. So maybe I'll just move on to my short, presentation on Kebun Bangsa. Maybe I can share content, yeah? Okay. Can everyone here see my slides?
Yes, Joanne.
Yes, okay. So this is a view from the back door. So many people don't know that we actually have a back door from Lorong Bukit Pantai 4. If you come down from the back, which is actually a lot higher than the front, you can see the entire kebun. But this was taken about 3 months ago. Maybe the vegetation is a lot longer and taller. You may not get this view anymore. Yeah, because every couple of months when you go there, Kebun Bangsa changes because of the plants and the volunteers kept working on it, and that's what I like about Kebun Bangsa. So short introduction, what is Kebun Bangsa? So we established in 2017 at Lorong Bukit Pantai in Bangsa. The site is about 1 hectare under TNB power transmission line. It's actually when we planned for Kebun Bangsa, it was actually more than 1 hectare. It's actually 2.5 hectare, which is 3 parcels of land. But at the moment, we are still working on parcel 2. The parcel 1 and parcel 3, we haven't started yet. So, it will be an ongoing project, for the next couple of years. We have about 50 plus active volunteers. So people come at their own time, as well as we do have a volunteer session, which is every Wednesday morning and also Saturday morning. So on Saturday morning, sometimes we get random people, walking in asking, can I help you? So if it's not then, the regular, about 10 of them will be there. So when someone walked in and said, can I help you? The regular volunteers will just sort of tell them what to do. And yeah, so other than that, the regular volunteers also started coming in on Monday. So it's a Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Other than that, there's another 15, 20 of us that we go in at our own time. So I like to go in the evening and not in the morning. So, other than a place to grow vegetable, Kebun Bangsa is actually a knowledge ground on ecosystem and biophilia. So, when we say biophilia, it's been sort of quite a big topic where people talk about how to coexist with the natures and animals. So do read a little bit about it. It's quite an interesting, philosophy. So Kebun Bangsa, most of the kebun, when you say, community-led, the people has to be there. So for me is, the people power is important. And also, it's a ground where we cultivate a social ecosystem and the spirit of Gotong Royong. So, when I said that, I'm a community volunteer, but it's not just us giving back. We actually get a lot more, from Kebun Bangsa. So, from, being close to nature, learning how to grow vegetable, even understanding about chicken. Now I know a little bit about hatching chicken, eggs, and because we do have an expert, and I see him regularly, so he gives me a lot of information. Not that I want to rear chicken, in my apartment, but sometimes it's just about good knowledge to have. It's all about survival skill. Okay. So project initiative, why we do this? So this project is supported obviously by the surrounding community, which is the most important. Kebun Bangsa has 14 houses that's adjoining our kebun, and we have about 10 of them supporting us, while the other 4, it's either they're not interested or they are not very friendly. So, but it's okay. We have the majority. Also by the community volunteers, and also, when I say private corporations and authorities, so they help in different ways, whether it's finances and the authorities, obviously with approvals and land as well. So, and I just have to say that if it wasn't for DBKL, Kebun Bangsa wouldn't have started. It was because they have pushed for the land approval. So we thank them, very much. We also get Kickstarter fund from Think City, and that's how I'm involved when it first started in 2017, because I was still in Think City at that time. That's how I get to know it, attended, community engagement sessions and stuff. So the harvest, so we grow vegetable, we dedicated about half of the land to growing vegetable. So, a lot of people don't know that we actually gave our vegetable to the underserved community. So at the moment, there's a few. Lighthouse Children Welfare Home, which is just down the road from us. So it's an orphanage home. Before COVID, the children used to come and grow their own vegetable. But, when sort of COVID started, and then, it's getting like more and more serious, the kids just sort of, stopped coming, they just stayed home. But luckily we have one volunteer that, took over the plot of land and continued growing vegetable for them. So now he will send the vegetable to the Lighthouse kids. We also have our Myanmar refugee group in Pudu. So they've been with us for over a year now. So we have given them a plot of land up the hill for them to grow their own vegetable. Other than that, the vegetable that the regular volunteers grow also go to them. There's about 60 of them in the community center in Pudu. So every time they cook for 60 people. So we have to, every Wednesday, our regular volunteer I will actually send the vegetable down to them. So whatever we grow, we have to make sure that it's enough to feed 60 people. That's why, sometimes you see that, like the kangkong has to come in bulk, okra has to come in bulk, because, if it doesn't fruit else, then, it's sort of no point growing it, because, it's not enough for 60 people to eat at the same time, or else then you have, a mixed vegetable dish and stuff like that. Yeah. So we have pit stop with us as well. Well, at the beginning of 2017, the vegetable plot will actually sort of started for pit stop. So pit stop is in Pale, and what they do is okay, so they actually feed the street friends, people that sleep on the streets, homeless people. So we don't actually regularly give them vegetable at the moment, but sometimes we do. We have a big pandan sort of plant like an area, yeah. So they do come and take pandan from us. And also Food Not Bomb. So Food Not Bomb has started with us maybe a year and a half since the pandemic started, yeah. And they are very, very regular. So there's like about 5-6 of them. And they are also street feeders, as in they feed the street feeders in Jalan Hang Lekyu. So every other week. So they come and grow vegetable in Kebun Bangsa. And then, they harvest and then they cook vegetarian food for friends on the street. Okay, so at the end of the day, Kebun Bangsa is a non-profit project. All profits, whatever, if we have donations, if we do, sales, of whatever, everything goes back to the land. It goes back to Kebun. So no one is profiting from anything. We have 2 gardeners that we hired to actually look after the general maintenance of the kebun. There's a lot of work in kebun, no joke here. So other than the 2 gardeners that we pay, no one else get paid. Everyone volunteers. So that's why we've attracted so many people to come in, whether to spend their time with us or to give us donation in kind, monetary form, because the intention is very clear. The objective is very clear. No one gets profit out of this. Okay. So this is a regular, weekend in Kebun Bangsa. This was actually taken before COVID, 2019 February. You see that Tanglong there, Chinese New Year. I really like this photo because, the kids were playing with the turkey and the chicken. So I kept this photo. So other than a kebun, we are also an urban park. So part of the idea of, not just a kebun to grow vegetable, for the underserved community, but also, understanding that Kuala Lumpur is lack of open space. So if anyone's from, the planning or the landscape, the department, you will know that we need about 20 square meter of open space, every single person. At the moment, we only have 10. So it means that, where do we get more open spaces? So community project can also be public park. So normally I don't show this, but because, this is for university and, I wanted to share a little bit more. So I've put in, a bit of process on, so then you understand how we do this step by step, and also, in terms of timeline, because when people look at it, we always say that, we started 2017, but we didn't start 2017. We started in 2013. It took us 4 years. It actually took Saxon and a few co-founder a few years to reach to 2017 when we first walked into the land and, you put your chanko down. That was 2017. It was 4 years of planning, getting a lot of setback from especially the landowner, the government. Government are very conservative. They feel like this is a piece of infrastructure land that was given to Tenaga Nasional, as land for power pole and stuff. So therefore, it cannot have double usage. But what Saksan and his team at that time, that the very first batch of the co-founder saw was opportunity. Yes, it is infrastructure land, but the power pole is up there. Why can't you use the land down, on the ground? And there's actually 8 kilometers of TMB land in Bangsa. 8 kilometers. All this is just abandoned. And the worst part is TMB has to send a person to cut the grass. I don't know how often, could be every month or something. So imagine this person has to cut grass every single month, of 8 kilometers, his job is just to cut grass. So it doesn't make sense, if you actually allow community to come in and do community projects, then the community will look after that piece of land. And Kebun Bangsa is one of the best example. It's well kept, until today, after 4 years, we still have people working on it. Saksan is still there every single day, morning and evening. If you walk in, you see him working. Yeah. So concept ideation first, if you're an architect or landscape architect, you would have been quite familiar with this process. So 2 years of talking and, trying to knock on doors, see who's interested, not just from land approval, but also from, monetary, finances, who are the experts, it's a big piece of land. You need your workforce, you need people to come on board. Yeah. So after that, when Saksan finally got to DBKL, a department called LA21, Local Agenda 21. So he finally managed to knock on the right door. There was a very active lady in LA21 we call her Min, Noraz Min. So she was the person that actually pushed for the land approval and the whole Kebun project. Without DBKL's endorsement on Kebun Bangsa, Tenaga Nasional and Pejabat Tanah dan Galian PTG Wilayah Persekutuan would not give, or allow Kebun Bangsa to use, because we are community. Although we are a registered society, but the practice is sort of not common yet. Yeah. So we DBKL sort of helped us out. So, but with DBKL on board, local LA21 is actually the community arm of DBKL. So they wanted community engagement. And it took DBKL and Kebun Bangsa team a whole year. They did multiple engagements. I've been to some of them. It's not just about, presenting your ideas. There was a lot of setback, from neighbors as well. If you have done any sort of engagement, public engagement in Bangsa, you will know that the people that lives in Bangsa is very knowledgeable. They are very, they are very vocal. There was one session at APW. So back then I was still with Think City. I was there as Think City gave Kickstarter fund, to Kebun Bangsa. So, we have to be there to participate. So there was a doctor that walked in. So he's a resident of Bangsa, and he started yelling. No joke. He wasn't even talking. We were halfway in, we were doing a breakout session, trying to design, with other architects and other designers, engineers, just drawing things. He walked in and started yelling. He said he didn't like this design. He didn't like this Kebun. He didn't want any community project. He doesn't want anyone touching TMB land. And he was just yelling. No joke. So I have to actually go and calm him down and say, why don't you sit down? Why don't you tell me? And then I can then relay the message to the team. So he was like going berserk. But he said he's a doctor. I don't know him. But if you actually can imagine that a professional person can actually act that way, I'm sure like when we do a lot of community and on-ground project, there was this term, American term called the NIMBY. So it's like a syndrome. It's like people don't want NIMBY means not in my backyard. So they don't want anything in my back, in their backyard. So this doctor has the same syndrome. So that was only one time, and there are multiple sessions which I actually didn't attend, so I don't know how it was. I did hear stories, from other co-founders and stuff. So it was very, very difficult, that 1 year. So, after a bit of engagement, at the same time, we also did the design with community leaders and experts. It took a good, couple of months, and then mid of 2017 is when the fieldwork started. All of us were there. There was about 50 to at least 100 people, working on different things at the same time. So I joined KKB, who, he owns ground control, and he came and sort of gave some grow tong to us. So I was helping them and learning how to put together a planter, grow tong planter box. Yeah. So other than, when the mid 2017, when we started, the infrastructure came in first. So it was when, the video that you saw earlier, you see that the water, the filter system, the filtration system, that actually came in, one of the first, to actually make sure that the site has water access. Because of the title of the land is actually a reserve land, we can't apply for electricity or Shaba's water. So for a good, 3 years, maybe 2 years, we've been using drain water, that was that came down, from one of the lorong and cul-de-sac, up the hill, with that natural filtration system, that I showed in the video just now. So that's the process. So, back to ideation number one, Manifesto was one of the first thing that the co-founder and, the founding team did, why it's important to actually, for me to show it on the video. The board is actually in Kebun Bangsa, and also I bring it up again here is because this 10 principles is like a guiding principle for the Kebun. Anyone that comes in needs to understand that, all of us are guided by these 10 principles. So number one is very important, to tread lightly on the land, because, we try to practice permaculture farming. And permaculture means that, don't hurt your land. And if you actually, dig too much, there may be erosion. So that's not what we want. So, this sort of principles, is important. For example, like, to inspire children. Until today, we continue to try to, inspire children. We could not include them too much in the growing vegetable, because they're still young, but we do have some very, very young volunteers before COVID started. Our youngest was 2 years old. He's probably 4 now, because COVID has been around for 2 years. Yeah, but at that time, our youngest volunteer was actually 2 years old. He's a Japanese mixed Malaysian kid, a boy. Yeah. And then number 7, to be a joint community effort. So we always have to remember that, this is a joint community effort. We need to respect each other. It's not your decision or my decision. This is what's the best for Kebun and, for everyone that actually put in their effort. Yeah. And number 10, of course, sikit-sikit lama-lama jadi bukit lah. Yeah. So we do little things, even, in finances, we try to, collect, small donations, and, one day, it'll be something big. So for us is, we started with a hectare, but, we do, we work on it, on area by area. So that's our manifesto. There are many things, in the ideation process, but, I'm not the founding team. So, actually I couldn't share with you. Yeah. So this is the second process when, public engagement started, community engagement started. Saxon did a lot of presentation. It was in APW, DBKL was there, a lot of different authorities, a lot of residents from Bangsa. So then other than engagement with the adults, they also did engagement with children, which was quite interesting. Excuse me. So they did took the children to to visit the site, and then get them to draw what is their aspiration. And that was actually quite inspiring. I personally wasn't there, but I've heard stories from the co-founder that was there with the children. Other than that, community design workshop, this is in the Saxon's office, and he invited his friends and whoever that has an expertise to come and join in to actually design this kebun bangsa. Until today, we have some sort of follow the initial concept. So on the left is actually a concept that Sexton drew, So if you look at the bottom, it started with permaculture gardens, and then the allotments, and then the flower meadows. So gravity-fed fountain. So that's the gravity-fed fountain was the water filter system that he was talking about. So he actually had an idea right at the beginning before the kebun started. Tea plantation. So tea plantation didn't happen. Yeah. So on the right is actually a model that one of the volunteers did. So the middle section, from Lorong Bukit Pantai to Lorong Bukit Pantai 4 is where the current site is. But there's also the top and bottom, which we actually haven't started working on it yet. So these are some of the images that modeling that our co-founding team worked on that, to actually present to the wider audience, during public engagement. So we always thought of, flower, why flower? Because flower attracts insects, it attracts bees. So, flower was a big thing for us, other than growing vegetable. So this one is actually the middle section. If you walk into kebun, there's a fish pond on your right. So it actually sort of looks like this, so to some extent, the very early idea that the co-founding team had sort of did apply to, the current. Yeah, so this looking up the hill, and then, some other area, the walkway sort of, on the side sort of didn't happen. Because we didn't want to touch the land, on the upper hill. So we actually created the footpath, down, on the ground actually. Yeah. So this is looking back from, from the back door. Yeah. So this is what kebun bangsa looks like before it started. Plants, and you can actually see there's a lot of fruit trees already there. And it was actually planted by the neighbors. So the trees that is in kebun bangsa today, we didn't plant it because TMB didn't allow us to plant any trees. They have a restriction of 2 meters, so no trees allowed. So whatever tree we had was from our neighbors, and we inherited them. This is what kebun bangsa looks like. The greens are still there. We did take the front part, a little bit of the front part out to park some cars. But other than that, it's still green, and we managed to cap that. Yeah. So purpose and advocacy. Why are we doing this? So at the beginning, I mentioned that it's important that kebun bangsa became it was a platform to learn. Okay, so education ground for permaculture farming. So we have different experts, from the permaculture farming field that came in and shared their knowledge. So regulars and even sometimes visitors actually learn from them. Why permaculture? Because farming in permaculture method is actually a lot more sustainable and environmental friendly, where you actually work with nature, instead of against nature. And also one of the most important thing is they don't use a lot of commercial fertilizer. They, pesticides, those are not just killing the insects that's eating your plant, but it's actually killing everything, So, so practicing permaculture farming method is very, very important for us. So to some extent, we will try to follow that. Yeah. So cultivate the spirit of giving back. So gotong royong. So we always, mention, anyone that says, how do I participate in kebun bangsa? Just come for gotong royong session on Saturday. and Wednesday, if you can, if you don't have to work. So Kebun Bangsa became a platform where the rakyat comes and give back to society. Yeah. So, and that has been ongoing for the last 4 years, and we're still doing it now. It's important that, we foster the community spirit. So then, if you think about, when you were in kampong, there's this kampong culture where people help everyone. But when you start living in, urban area and, big cities, that sort of culture sort of, lose in translation or something, So that's the gotong royong and, the kampong culture that, we wish to either bring back or maybe continue, I've never lived in kampong before, so but I've read a lot about it. Yeah. So, but I've experienced it in Kebun Bangsa now. Yeah. So another thing is nature-based solution to climate crisis. So this is a big thing, for everyone. Everyone's talking about, climate crisis. COP26 is coming in. So, if you look at how urban farm can actually contribute to, solution to climate crisis, is sometimes some research, online says that, indirectly it helps. Some says, it could be an alternative solution. So, go and read, on your, I'm not a climate change expert, but I do my background check and desktop research and stuff. So, so one of it is actually to provide sustainable food system. So Kebun Bangsa, like I said, we regularly, every single week, provide vegetable to at least 60 people, the community that lives in Pudu. So of course, we can't fit, the entire Bangsa or something, but we do what we can, yeah. And also, adding greeneries to the city is very important, because when you have, more greeneries, and what's most important is greeneries that are different from your neighbors. And because, with that, you attract a different type of fauna. Yeah. So, it helps restore biodiversity when you have, a variety of greens and, variety of flora, variety of fauna. And also, it's important to provide refuge to fauna, because, when it's an urban area, there's not much, green spaces that the animals or, the insects can actually, live in. So we have biawa, we have snakes, we have all sorts of things, living in Kebun Bangsa, which, not so good for our chickens, kept, attacking our chickens, but it's okay, this is what is called, it's nature, yeah. And when we have all these elements, add together, we are hoping that, in 5 years, 10 years, we can actually help lower the heat island effect, in Kuala Lumpur, if it's not, just in Bangsa. But you can actually really feel that, when you're inside Kebun Bangsa, say under a tree, the temperature is actually a little bit lower. It's not so hot. Yeah. So the last one is something interesting. If you watched the video earlier, so YB Zuraida and Saxan was talking about how can we use idle land, like abandoned land, tanah terbiak, for community projects. So what we are doing here is, we are actually, Kebun Bangsa is challenging the traditional land use planning. If you go through if you're an urban planner, or, in urban planning course, you can read through the entire DBKL structure plan, whatever plan they have. It talks nothing about agriculture, because DBKL land or Kuala Lumpur is urban area. So there's nothing for agriculture. So for us is, we have a kebun, in the middle of the city. We're actually challenging them. And we did give them some headache, although they help us push for this project, because some of the officers, they've gone overseas, they've read things online. They understand that it's good to have community garden, but some people, just sort of hung on to the traditional land use, traditional planning system, which was written in, if I'm not mistaken, I think the act was 1967 or something. It's definitely older than me. So to some extent, it has to change. So we came in, Kebun Bangsa came and we challenged that, yeah. And but the funny thing is, this kind of land under the Naga National Pole, if you drive around, KL, PJ, you always see nursery, commercial nursery, people that are earning money. They are allowed to use the land, but community projects are not allowed. And we are happy to pay whatever, the nursery, commercial nursery are paying. It was so difficult. Until today, it's so difficult to get approval because I've put in 2 applications with Pejabat Tanah to actually get government reserve land to actually do more, kebun community. Until today, they refuse to approve it. They just sort of went quiet. Yeah. So we just hope that the government's more supportive. In what the Rakyat is trying to, we're just trying to, gather all of us together and help someone else. Yeah. So I specifically pull up the nature-based solution to climate crisis, and I always like to, pull this up to actually, discuss a little bit about, why is urban farming, what has urban farming got to do with climate change or, solution to climate crisis, yeah? So, I pull out a few, points where I think that is relevant. The first is actually protect and restore nature. So if you look at the photo with the yellow flowers, so I specifically put that picture in. So that plant is called the sunham. It's also known as the nitrogen fixer. So if you're growing vegetable, around, it's good to have sunham because it fixes the nitrogen. And if you understand about farming, NPK, N means nitrogen. You need to have a balanced NPK. If it's not, then your vegetable are not going to grow well. Yeah. So sunham fixes the nitrogen. So sometimes, when people talk about, urban farming, you're just growing vegetable, like it's not going to help the climate. No. It depends on what you grow inside your farm. So when you walk down Kebun Bangsa, you see a lot of different type of flowers, a lot of different type of plants that is actually not even edible. Because when you talk kebun means that, you grow vegetable you can eat. No. So what we also do is we bear in mind and remember that protecting and also restoring the nature is part of what we should be doing, and helping the environment to regrow and, find a balanced ecosystem. So the back to protect and restore nature, the vast landscape of edibles, we have different type of flowers, aquatic plant. Aquatic plant is one of my favorite. Different water hyacinth. We don't normally see them here unless, you go to Lake Garden. Yeah, and then, and plant species, they all create a very special microclimatic, condition for flora and fauna. And earlier I've mentioned, the plants that was grown in Kebun Bangsa, some of them are actually very different from the surrounding area. And that's how we attract the insects, back to Kebun Bangsa, to Bangsa itself. Yeah. So it's not just to, grow anything in general. Understand that, if you want to attract bees, you need to plant, flowers that, or trees that the bees will like. So understanding who you're targeting and then plant it, that will be how you help the climate and restore nature. Yeah. The second is, fix our climate. The extensive greening, and vegetation cover helps solve a host of urban environmental problems. For example, urban heat island intensity, which I've sort of brought in earlier. Yeah. Another thing is we encourage reuse, recycle when we can. The 3R principle is very important. So we are trying to build a waste-free world, wherever we can. So we now have, when you look at the video earlier, so I've specifically sort of videoed the compost collection, the organic waste collection right at the car park. So anyone can use it, anyone can bring their kitchen waste, as long as it's vegetarian, so we don't take meat and then bones and stuff. Yeah. So then we actually turn it into compost for our kebun. So what we're trying to do here is it's not about just collecting waste, but also to encourage people to do so, whether they want to donate or put it, throw it in kebun, or you can actually do it for your own garden as well. So waste free is important. So I actually collect my own kitchen waste. I put it in a freezer, as and when it's in a big bag, I'll bring it down to Kebun Bangsa. So every one of us, if you talk about SDG, if you talk about, what can I do, as simple as that, collect your kitchen waste, put it in your freezer. Doesn't matter, if you have a big enough freezer, you can just keep it for 6 months. Yeah, and then just bring it in and dump it in the bin, and then we will then reuse that, turn it into compost and reuse it to grow vegetable. Use of natural resources. So we use whatever we have, on site, and not bring things from, too far away. So, as on the video, when Seksan was actually doing, turning the compost, his conversation, when he started, it was from America. It was actually, he was having a conversation with me, and I was recording him working. Yeah. So it was a random day. I didn't do this for this video actually. So he was complaining about some other volunteer wants to bring in compost, and it was compost from America. So to him, it was ridiculous, because we have all the resources, in the city, in our house, in our neighborhood. Why pay money to ship compost from America? That doesn't make sense. So this is some of the philosophy that he has, and all of us sort of understand and remember that food mile, or any logistics in any sort of mile will pollute the environment. So remember that buy local, eat local, that sort of thing. Yeah. So let's go back to like use of natural resources. So the water that I was talking about, in this filter system. So the water actually came from the drain up, the hill, in a quiet cul-de-sac. So we've been using that water for about a good 4 years, and we're still using it. So we have about 20 of this filter system, where it's just naturally filtered by plants and stones and microbes. And I'll show you a video of Seksan's interview later, and he will explain a little bit more about this sort of filter. I think because it was designed by him, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And also, other than water harvesting, we reuse a lot of household and construction waste. So if you actually walk around Kebun Bangsa, you see some gate and fence, those are actually donated by neighbors from, Bangsa, where, they are tearing their house down and they're building a new house, and they don't want their old fences. So they gave it to us, and we reuse it. So if you actually look around properly, you see that, a lot of things that we use are actually from household. We try to reuse whatever we can, and regularly we have people giving us stuff. Yeah. So this is the middle section of Kebun Bangsa, where we grow vegetable. Just to give you a bit of context, I didn't put this in the video. So you've already heard what YB Zuraida and Seksan was actually talking about, and that was actually in June last year, 2020. So Dasa Kebun Committee Bandar is actually a document of about 500 pages. So the local government, Kementerian Perumahan and Kerajaan Tempatan, when YB Zuraida was the minister at that time, she sort of did this, and it just came out. So if you want to understand more about Kebun Committee, what you can do, there are a few things that you can't do in the Kebun Committee in the city. Go in and have a look. I just put in the Garis Panduan page for you to refer to, but do have a look at it. So like I explained, gotong royong is important to us. So this is in May 2020. So it was last year when the first lockdown just lifted. So you can see that our regular volunteers, are still there. It's not that a pandemic comes and everyone just sort of disappear. And that little boy is that, our youngest volunteer that I talked about, his name is Gene. So I've also kept this, to explain how Kebun Bangsa also gave a lot of people relief, during the pandemic. It gave relief to me. If it wasn't for Kebun Bangsa, I don't think I'm actually sane at the moment. So the Kebun actually, became a space where the regular volunteers, so because sometimes when DBKL says that, their public park are closed, then Kebun Bangsa, we have to close our park, just to be, in line with the SOP and stuff, So, but the regular volunteers are still allowed to come in because you need someone to look after the vegetable, yeah? So it became a great stress reliever for, all of us, especially people that, doesn't have children at home or, people that lives alone, yeah? So, transfer of knowledge, we still do it. You can see that, the photo at the bottom, people are wearing face masks, but, workshop are still going, we still sort of, do as much as we can, sort of according to SOP. People need some entertainment and, you need to learn new skills. Social gathering. We had some social gathering when the cases are not so severe, just to keep the regular volunteers, like sane, and we do regularly have a lot of makan, for all of us. We sort of organize it ourselves. And the last one was maybe last week or something, yeah, just, a small group of people where we come together, so it's not just a place where you come and volunteer. It also becomes, a place where you make friends, and learn about each other and stuff. Visit and learn, few hundreds of visitors, every single, Saturday and Sunday, unbelievable. Yeah. So, so for me, it's, it keeps, a lot of people sane, so, and also it became popular because Kebun, it's like an open space and we are actually quite big. So people feel a lot safer spending time in the open. So other than Kebun Bangsa, we also have another Kebun called the Kebun Kerinci. So it's similar to Kebun Bangsa. It's also a community farm, urban farm. It's 10 minutes away from Kebun Bangsa within Lebah Pantai. But it's a little bit different where Kebun Kerinci was actually built for the purpose of giving a farmland to the PPR folks in Lembah Pantai. So if you know Lembah Pantai well, you know that there's a lot of PPR flats, PPR's Pantai Ria, PPR Sri Sentosa, PPR Sri Cempaka. There's also a PPR there. Yeah. So so we also thought that giving them an edible garden also promotes healthy food diet for elderly and children, and also give them some healthy recreation activities to enjoy. So Kebun Kerinci, just a quick overview. It was established in March 2019 at Kampung Dato Tata Pantai Dalam. So the area is about maybe 1/3 of Kebun Bangsa. It's actually a lot smaller. It's located along JPS River Reserve. Again, DBKL sort of helped us got the approval, from JPS. So thanks to DBKL's team. There's about 20 active volunteers, working on a daily basis. So the people that worked in Kerinci is different from Kebun Bangsa. Kerinci has their own group of people. When we started, it took us about 1 year for the Kebun Bangsa volunteers to work in Kerinci. And then after that, when the pandemic started, early March, people are sort of not allowed to go out. So, but because the PPR residents live sort of next door, they started to come, because they understand that the volunteers from other places can't come. So they sort of continue to look after. And then until today, we sort of gave the whole operational, on-ground operation responsibility to the PPR folks, which is our volunteers, and they're happy to take on and grow vegetable for themselves and their neighbors. Yeah, so it's exactly the same permaculture garden. And although having said that, the Kebun Bangsa and the Club Kebun Banda, actually we don't go down anymore, but we still do building work. So the last one was I spent 4 months with 4 pakciks from Kebun Kerinci. End of last year, we built a wakaf for them. Yeah, and other than that, there's a group of young urbanites that actually built a calisthenic gym about 5 meters away from Kebun Kerinci. So it's actually part of Kebun Kerinci, but this is a workout area. It's free. A lot of young people from the PPR area and also from University, apparently they drive from Gombak and stuff to come and use the calisthenic gym. Quite interesting. Yeah. So if you have a chance, and you're in the area, do look up for it. You can just Google Kebun Kerinci, and it's just about 5-10 meters, away under the flyover. So aspiration, Kebun Kerinci, why are we doing it? It's actually to introduce permaculture farming to urbanites and supply health food, because there was a report on UNICEF that says children that lives in KL do not have enough nutrients. They're underweight, they're malnutrition. So this report is actually prepared in 2018, is available online. So do read about it. And PPR Pantai Ria in Lembah Pantai is part of the study. So, when we read that, it was on the news, it was actually quite a big thing, and, we were quite worried about that. Again, the same thing in the spirit of gotong royong and stuff. So these are some of the happy faces of Kebun Kerinci. We are working towards a bigger goal. So, so we are actually planning for an expansion. It's been a year, I've put in this proposal and applied for the land use, from Pejabat Tanah, but they still haven't got back to us. So it's actually quite sad, because what we realized was the current Kebun Kerinci is way too small, and there's so many residents, and a lot of them has raised interest on growing vegetable. So we felt that there's a need to actually expand. So if we actually get this approval to use this plot of land, we can actually serve another 30 to 50 families, with the same concept of flower garden, herb garden, and veggie plot. So all of us can participate in this initiative. Whether you do gotong royong, donate for a good cause, organic waste compost, and also sometimes you can have your community a social event, after the pandemic as well. So Dr. Aniza has specifically asked me to bring up the SDG. So what I thought was, instead of talking about the 17 SDG, let's talk about what actions can you do. And this 117 actions was actually released last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I came across it. And I thought it was very easy for, laymen to relate. So it's not talking about high-level policy. It's actually talking about what you and I can do at home. Yeah. So I've picked up, there's about 10 different SDGs that directly and indirectly sort of relate to community farm, and the things that I talk about, like restoring the environment, the 3 R's, recycle, reuse, and stuff. So I pull out some of the actions. You have to go and read that document. There's 170 different actions, and almost every SDG has about 10 different actions that all of us can do. So, I don't have to talk about, say, zero hunger. Obviously, the reason why we have a farm is to actually, grow vegetable and stuff. Let's talk about, say, quality education. Yeah, so how can an urban farm relate to quality education? So, read Action 36, talk about the importance of nature, animals, and environmental protection with your children. So if you're married and you have children, do talk about it and, explain to them why it's important to have animals in the city, in Kebun, because the animals will help us provide a balanced ecosystem. So the animals, let's say the cow dung became, our fertilizer, for the vegetable we grow. Yeah. So, say in Action 37, share ideas of sustainable behavior change to friends and family who don't know where to start. So one of the reasons why I keep, accepting invites to give talks is I feel like, we can share knowledge, with others, whether you don't or whether you do, sometimes people just cannot remember. It's good to actually remind them, hey, you've been doing good, but you can do, better, or, come join us or start your own kebun, that's fine as well. So I'm not going to go through this. You have to read the document yourself. It comes in a PDF available online. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll share the link with you with Aniza, yeah? So some of the lessons learned, from Kebun Bangsa. So I specifically asked Seksan this. This was actually for a talk previously, with Razak. And so there are three things that Seksan said that, from the beginning in 2013 until now, 2021, there's a few things that, he wished that, he will have, or do better or something. So community engagement. So if you actually looked at the process, the timeline, he spent a good couple of years trying to plan this even before, he laid his foot in the land, before it became Kebun Bangsa. So the engagement method in Malaysia, in KL at the moment, is very linear. If you're an urban planner, you would have been taught in university that, when you do placemaking, you need to do engagement. But the engagement model that we are adopting, they're all from Western style. So you need to remember that, the engagement, because the model is from, Western countries where, everyone speaks the same language, everyone has, a general knowledge of, why we're doing, urban projects and stuff. But in Malaysia, it's not like that. KL is not like that, So we need to actually not just adopt directly, but, you need to some extent, modify it to suit the Malaysian or the KL context, or even your neighborhood context, because there were times that when we were doing engagement when I was in Think City, my invite has 5 different languages. It has Nepali language, Bangladeshi language, and Burmese language. And I went around, asking people to translate, the flyers for me. And luckily, we have cleaners, we have gardeners, help just translate, in simple term. Yeah. So it's not as direct and it's not as simple as, we think it is. Yeah. So like I said, our relationship with DBKL, we push a lot of boundaries. They've helped us so much in the beginning, but because our nature of trying to become, trying to portray or give idea to other people that they've never done before, how to do it, So we kept pushing boundaries, and to some extent, it actually hurt our relationship until today, they're kind of scared of us. Sometimes when we ask for something, they don't reply us. Things like that. So and we challenge the traditional system a little bit too much. But having said that, we're not gonna step back. We're gonna continue to do this. Even it means that we have to sacrifice all our relationship, because without someone that's pushing it, no one will make a change. So we push here, someone else will realize that, we need to. And then other than pushing it, we also have our supporters, So for example, like Kebun Bangsa, we started our first kebun. We're actually not the first people that actually start kebun under, TNB line, but we are one of the biggest ones. And then other people realize that, Kebun Bangsa exists. They come and see how we do it. And then slowly they went away and they did their own. And then there's more and more kebun, under government reserve land. That's when the government realized that there needs to be some sort of legislation or some sort of guideline to some extent. So we push in our way, and we challenge whatever system they have at the moment, which is not good enough for the current urbanites. Yeah, and then last challenges, how to push for and nurture biophilic potential. So how do we encourage folks to live harmoniously with domestic livestock? And maybe the baby elephant was word from Saxon. So last line, I want to leave you with what is impossible for most is possible for some of us. So this is what Saxon always said, which, he felt that we need to have that activist behavior in us. And, if you want to make a change. So with this, I'm going to finish off my presentation. And I'm going to get Anisa to turn on the YouTube video of Saxon's interview. And that's 8 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stop share.
All right. Thank you, Joanne. So we're going to watch the video shared by the committee.
The idea, I think, starts in 2013. There were a group of us who were campaigning during the election. It's a campaign called the Malaysian Spring, where we were planting small little flowers on roundabouts and in public road reserves and things like that. So after that whole campaign, which lasted for about a month, we got about a few thousand Malaysians involved. So we went to plant that same seed of hope here in this garden. So we went to TNB to apply. They said this land doesn't belong to them. We went to DBKL, went to Land Office. And after about 4 years, we managed to secure the permission and we started. Come, I show you a very nice spot up here. This garden, the first thing they wanted to do was to plant vegetables to kind of feed the underprivileged, the needy, so the homeless, the orphans, the people who stay in low-cost flats. When we plant vegetables, we don't use pesticides. And then if you look at some of our vegetables here, there's very little insect attack on it because I think it's about respect of ecology, of the environment. Eating for Malaysian is a very big culture. So we're trying to promote a lot of community eat out here. So one of our volunteers built this pizza oven where we can cook a lot of food from bread to pizza to roasting of meat and stuff like that. One of the things that we're trying to educate young children is how to grow their own food. And paddy has been our staple food. This is a little demonstration plot that we do every 3 or 4 months to teach people how to plant rice. We don't actually harvest it, we just leave it to the birds. So the birds will come and eat out all these things. That's where everybody come and dump their rubbish. To them it's rubbish, to us it's fertilizer. So the whole neighborhood here in Bangsa, they are all the organic waste to us in the car park. We bring them in here, put them into this compost bin, and after about 6 months, when it slowly goes down, what we get at the bottom are beautiful organic fertilizers. So these are extremely good for planting vegetables. And of course we got 2 cows, and recently they have given birth to another 3 cows. So their cow dung also makes very, very good fertilizers. So we got about 20 of these filters here. And these filters has got a lot of microbes and also bacteria in it that cleans the water as it comes down. So it's like our gut. I want to show you this.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
There's such a contrast.
Yeah. We have many experts helping us in this garden. So this is Clifford who brought in this beehive. These are stingless bees. They are very, very friendly bees. Most stingless bee will bite. They don't sting, but this one doesn't even bite. And they produce amazing amount of fantastic honey in here. So what we do is every 3 months we'll lift up this roof and we use a syringe and we'll syringe out the honey. We don't collect a lot, so it mainly goes to volunteers. Do you love this big melon here, folksy folks? A lot of the children and the old people who come to visit this garden, some of them are on wheelchairs and a lot of old disabled people. We created this garden just to demonstrate to them all the vegetables that we're growing in there are out here too. So they can see like basil, spearmint, chocolate mint, Brazilian spinach. I talked about pollination just now, right? You can see them at work here. There's so many different types of insects flying around this male flower here. And very slowly they will come and visit this female flower down here. And that's how pollination works. And this will turn into a corn later. See the cheery sunflower? Come and follow me into this greenhouse. So one of the ways we generate income for the garden is by selling animal feed like this. So kids can come and buy feed to feed the rabbits, the fish, the chicken. There's another roosting
I know, I was quite surprised.
roosting guy here. The idea is about us all collectively taking small actions but making quite big changes. So as we are talking to now, there's another 10 other communities like this being set up, at least, maybe more. Because they come, they see, they get inspired, they go back to the community, we give them support, info support as well as technical support, and they are starting up. So it's about that movement going to become I think a big movement that will probably permeate the country. Yeah. It's about people coming together to help themselves, feed ourselves, educate ourselves, bring out a new generation of young kids which are a lot more environmentally sensitive, etc., etc. Feed the poor, take care of others, whatever. So it's all those things that is all encompassed in a small little garden like this. So we get to use this space, the poor gets to get fed, social enterprises get to use spaces like this. The whole neighborhood can throw rubbish to us. They don't need to throw it into their rubbish bin and send it to the landfill, and they will become methane gas. It will affect climate change. So those are the things that we are trying to kind of open up people's idea of how we can be a bit more creative in the way we live our life in today's society. How to live with other species. Yeah, that's a very big important thing to me. That's why the animals are here. We get a lot of resistance from our animals in Kebun Bangsa because people say that you are not allowed to rear animals in the city, you're breaking the bylaws and things like that. So what I'm saying to them is that the bylaw needs to change to accommodate new urban land use like this. And as we speak, I think the new urban farming guidelines are being prepared, and I think it will be announced very, very soon in the next few weeks. So those are the things that we are also trying to change. Politician mindset, laws which are archaic, and to try to bring society up to a different level of sophistication. Now we cannot never be always third world. We must catch up, with other places like Amsterdam, Singapore, Scandinavia, or whatever. So that's what we are trying to do.
Right, thank you very much, Joanne, Kebun Bangsa, and we also have Seksan here joining us today this morning. So it's great to have Seksan join on board as well. We have a lot of questions already in the list that have been shared through our committee. And before we go to the questions, I just wanted to highlight that I think it's really great that you shared about the process and for all of us to realize that it actually takes, years of collaboration, of engagement, going down to the ground before reaching this stage. Because often we see the end product, but we don't maybe not many of us understand the sort of determination that we have to go through, the persistence, the sort of partnership and governance and challenges you have to overcome, and then getting buy-ins and approval. So although doing community engagement, there are certain things that you need to consider, adhere, and maybe the other parties need to change. So I think that is a valuable sharing, because before we get to this point where all of these impacts and benefits can be distributed, we've got to go through the hard work first, and then it's hard work along the way, no doubt. To see, I mean, we can feel sort of the ambience of Kebun Bangsa even from the video of how green it is, and to see those insects. Okay, so maybe you shared a slide about the pandemic, COVID-19, when people started to reconnect with their gardens for stress relief. And I was also, Cik San shared in the chat box that the produce from Kebun Bangsa, or maybe also Kebun Kerinci, also became part of the emergency feeding work during MCO. So can you share a bit about that?
So actually, I had one slide about COVID, but because you specifically asked for SDG, I took that COVID slide out. So it was the first early beginning of the pandemic in May, that when everyone was actually in the hurdle of trying to get when the vegetable couldn't come from Cameron Highland and stuff. Kebun Bangsa became a place where the the vegetable supplier, actually dumped their kangkong. There was lorries and lorries, there was a lot of kangkong. So Kebun Bangsa became a place where they just left it there, and anyone in the area can come and pick it up. So some YBs, YB Maria Ching came, with her 4-wheel drive, picked vegetable, and then went back to her constituency to actually give it away. So a lot of people came and take vegetable from different NGOs, and so that's one initiative. We are there, and we have spaces, so we became a collection point for vegetable. Some of our eggs that our chicken lays, and also vegetable, we actually gave it to I think it was another volunteer, so I didn't do it. So it was another volunteer that took it to a school and put it in food packages as well. Other than that, so those are the sort of vegetable from our garden that we gave away. I don't think it's a big amount, but we participate in that. Recently, the latest lockdown in June, we started a food fund. So we call it the KKB Food Aid. We've collected a good 70,000, and we actually partner with Human Aid Selangor and also Beyond Borders to actually, so they send out the food packages, to the underserved community that they work with. But Kebun Bangsa became a platform to collect donation. Yeah, so if we talk about COVID, emergency fund, that's what we've done. So it's not just a kebun. We step in when there's emergency that needs to be addressed. So we do what we can, and also because Kebun Bangsa has a big follower as well. We've been around for 4 years. We have like over 10,000, I think 70,000, Instagram followers, and so on Facebook, we have another, 15, 20,000. So every time when we ask for, donation, or, people will actually want to be part of it and participate as well. So that's our function, not just to grow vegetables, not just the kebun. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing initiative, because I think, one of the things that MCO taught us, it took us away from, we couldn't go out. And then at an individual level, I think most of us might have thought, what if we just had to survive from what we have in our backyard? So these skills that we might see as, like basic, maybe like even for me, I didn't do much vegetable gardening, just, ornamental plants. But then again, when COVID came, I said, what if I didn't have any food? I've got to learn how to grow tomatoes or things like that. But if we take that at the scale of the community, imagine collectively what we could do, and this is what KKB had done, because you had gone beyond just the immediate community, and the food was able to be provided to like the refugees, the homeless people, and it went, I'm pretty sure it went beyond the boundary of Bangsa itself. So we had a question from a member of the audience that when you do the harvesting, do the collecting of the produce, giving it out to the community, do KKB measure impact for the project? For example, the numbers of people who receive the benefits, or the the tons or kilograms of vegetables getting distributed to the community. Is there a way of measuring impact on the community's SDG?
Okay, that's a very, very good question for academics, because at the end of the day, actually measuring vegetable did come up a few times, with the volunteers, the group of volunteers that actually grow and harvest vegetable. The reason why I said that, it's good for academics, measuring impact or measuring, in a qualitative way is because if you imagine all of us are volunteering, number one. Second is, there's only, they spend a few hours, on a Wednesday and a Saturday. Their job is to grow vegetable and harvest vegetable. And on top of that, you also want that extra work. And other than that, it's not just extra work of measuring, but also the paperwork, right? So for us is, we do have a measuring machine, the weighing scale. So we got a volunteer to donate us one, generally they do measure it, they take a photo, but whether, they actually put that in paper and, advocate that, that's another level. But I'm sure if we want to, we can go back and backtrack. Yeah. So we did, even myself, I asked, because like I explained earlier, I don't grow vegetables. I do other things, yeah. So I did ask, do we actually calculate how much vegetable we harvest? And that was before we actually had a weighing scale. We had that maybe over a year ago already, yeah. So the first 2 years, we didn't have a weighing scale, and, people just grow and harvest and give away, yeah. So none of them has been recorded. But then at the end of the day, the volunteer groups came we sat together and we had a discussion, and, sometimes we don't want to put unnecessary paperwork on people as well. Yeah, yeah. But because to that extent, we made it easy for them. So we said, let's get a weighing scale. All you have to do is put it on top of the weighing scale, take a photo. Because when you have a photo and then you share it with a group, that is the record. And that's probably, what we need. Yeah. And then someone else who is interested in calculating and putting that, on an Excel sheet or something, that person can actually do it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Seksan, you're welcome to share a comment, or maybe you have a question for Joanne.
Okay.
No, he can answer something.
Sure. Yes, go ahead, Seksan.
No, I'm just trying to add on a bit more information to your question. I think I was just being told by one of our key volunteers just 2 days ago that the food that we produce now, we have been ramping our food production up for the last 6 months because we are producing a lot more compost now. Our soil is getting more and more fertile, especially when Bangsa Village started to contribute all their waste product to us, and also Alam Flora from our neighborhood. So we are generating a lot of compost. The vegetables that we are now ramping up, and most of it actually goes to feed the refugees during the lockdown. And I was told that our vegetables that we give them is enough for 60% to have meals for 3 days a week. So that's just some basic information regarding our production.
Yeah, I think that, that's amazing. Even without like having reports or indicators, but knowing how many people benefit from that to cook for how many number of days, that is indeed actually a kind of measures already. Okay, so in relation to that, we had another question from the audience. Is kebun bangsa considered subsistence farming? So I had to look up quickly what subsistence farming meant, and I think it refers to when it's sufficient for the community for the community's own consumption without surplus? Meaning, can it sort of self-sustain? And if yes, how do we apply this method of sustainable farming at the global scale? Meaning that if other states in Malaysia wanted to replicate it, if other countries wanted to replicate it, can this be done? Maybe
I'm
Seksan.
gonna let Seksan answer.
You are clever. Okay. I don't know. I don't know about subsistence because we have never used the vegetable for ourselves. All our vegetables are fed out, either to soup kitchens or to other underprivileged groups. So I really cannot answer the question. But I think the point is that I think from after the pandemic and the lockdown, when there was initially right at the very beginning, March 2020, there was a lot of panic of people because we've not experienced an experience like this before, where everything is shut down, and people were worried that they could not get food for the next few months. So I think that generated a lot of interest. But I think in the long term, the whole idea is about trying to produce food nearer to our community. It is not about trying to buy vegetables from Australia or China or even Cameron Highlands. If you can generate more vegetables that grow within like about 10 kilometers from where we stay, I think the world will be a lot more sustainable and a lot more meaningful. And I think this is a movement about trying to get people to think about that, because a lot of us have got backyards, a lot of us got manicured lawns, which is non-productive. A lot of our neighborhood has got a lot of reserve, whether it's train reserve, wood reserve, river reserve, TNB reserve, that we can use actually to produce food to feed ourselves as well as our local community. I think that is, the gist of the question. How subsistent it is, we have not measured. We don't know.
All right.
Also,
okay,
if you allow me to add, also other than vegetable, I think all of us should have chickens at our backyard. And that's when you actually get fresh eggs every morning. And I've had fresh egg, so my uncle in Australia has a backyard with, like 10 chickens. Every single morning with fresh eggs. So I really encourage every single urbanite to have chickens in your backyard and have fresh eggs. So vegetable, eggs from your garden, you don't even have to buy anything outside. Yeah.
I mean, probably you cannot beat the freshness of fresh eggs, fresh vegetables, and cooking directly from the backyard. I think there's also that sort of joy knowing that what you consume is something that you see grow and produce, and you become more appreciative of what you consume. Because before this, we have the food on our plates, it's sort of ready already. But if for those who have tried growing a garden, the waiting, the patience, and maybe the sort of the sacrifice of nature stacks of your vegetables to the birds, to the monkeys. So, that it gives a different appreciation to what, the food that we have. Okay, so kebun-kebun bangsa and all the kebun-kebun like Kerinci initiatives have been powered by, I think, advocacy, participation, and this commitment from the community. So another question from our audience, how did kebun-kebun bangsa encourage people to participate in this advocacy? Because it has been hard for some of the groups to find loyal volunteers. So how can they maintain this spirit of activism and not giving up? Because I know that from the process, you must have hit, walls, detour, and trying to come up with different solutions. How can they sustain with this?
Yeah. Seksan can share with us. I've talked for an hour. Your turn.
I think one of our secret of kebun-kebun bangsa is really our 2 full-time workers. So sustainability sometimes comes from actually putting money where our mouth is. I think if I don't know whether Dr. Lemil is still here. He was in the participant just now. Dr. Lemil Ng is from Follow Farm in Johor. he has got a quite an interesting model where it is called the CSA, the Community Share Agriculture, where families come together, they pool funds together, they contribute money, and they hire workers to run a farm. And the farm produce gets shared among those families. Vegetables are not cheap nowadays if you go to supermarkets. So I think it is sustainable and it's financially justifiable if actually we hire full-time workers to do the farming besides the volunteers. And as I say, Kebun Bangsa, our secret and our whatever critical thing is that we have 2 full-time workers. So when especially during the lockdown, when all our volunteers are not coming, at least our 2 workers are there to feed the animals and to do the basic watering, etc., etc. So those are the things that people can consider. Pool money together, maybe hire a worker, start a community farm. The vegetables can be distributed, and it would justify the money that people put in. Let's say if 10 families come together, each of them contribute 200 ringgit. You get $2,000. You can hire a worker. At the end of every week, you get a box of vegetables. And at the end of the month, I think that 4 boxes of vegetable is enough to justify the 200 ringgit that everybody puts in. So that will be one of the advice that I usually give to groups who say that they cannot commit.
Okay. So I think that's a very important point that we can highlight here, that although majority of the kebun is worked by volunteers, but you do have gardeners who maintain the kebun, because I think it's very important to understand that for all of us to understand that a kebun is operational, meaning you got to go down to the ground, so you have to have people who maintain this daily in order to upkeep the kebun for a long term. And then the other thing that I noticed was that how you generate income was from the activities that the visitors do, like buying the feed for the animals. So there's also that part of income generating to sustain the operation. And for students who are watching, probably students can draw out this sort of model or diagram, how the operation actually takes place, to understand that it's not just what you see on the site, but this soft infrastructure or the operations that go in the background. Because sometimes as maybe designers, we only see what's on the ground, but we forget that there's a whole operations in the backyard. Okay, so trajecting from that note just now, okay, some of our members shared that some members in the community don't really care about the importance of making the world green. I think Joanne shared the word NIMBY, not in my backyard. So that's a new acronym that I learned today. And so this kind of mentality definitely poses a challenge for Kebun Bangsa. So how do you encourage more people to contribute themselves in these kind of activities? Do you have like maybe a group of volunteers who see sort of, do you have that in your team, or is everybody realizes that they naturally needs to do it in order to get people on board?
Maybe I'll answer this, since I'm a sort of general volunteer and not let the founder do this. So what I like about Kebun Bangsa is everyone joined Kebun Bangsa and they sort of take on the role on their own, so nothing was assigned to them. For example, I tried to be a gardener, not very successful, and then I move on and do something else. Same with other volunteers. So when you talk about our philosophy, the principle, I think because they've spent so much time in Kebun Bangsa that all of us to some extent have the same understanding, where remember the manifesto that I shared with you, the 10 manifesto. So everyone remember, it has to be like this, yeah. So I think that the good thing about Kebun Bangsa is it grew, the social ecosystem grew very organically. And it doesn't have to be, a responsibility that is put on to someone. And that's what makes the volunteers continue to come back, because they don't feel like they're being pushed to do something. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Sepan.
Maybe I'll just add on to what Joanne said. Yeah, I think what we learned from Kebun Bangsa is that advocacy and also engagement does not come through talking. It comes through actual action and working. So we don't, in Kebun Bangsa, just to answer your question, we don't have an advocacy program, but we have gotong royong programs every Wednesday and every Saturday. And when people see us, or when people visit us, they see us working, that is when they start to join in. And I find that to be more meaningful. I've given up on talking because I think talking, especially in public town hall meetings and things like that in Malaysia, just now Joanne talked about that linear process of engagement is problematic. And I agree, because in Malaysia, what you find is that we have a lot of people or a minority of people who are very, very loud. So there are all these naysayers that will always come for meetings and to come for engagement. But the real doers and the real contributors of society, they don't participate in things like that. So all these town hall meetings and engagement and things like that are problematic because we are talking to the wrong people. So that is what I will advocate now, is that people should just do things, shut up, don't talk too much. I don't like to talk. Actually, I prefer not to talk. That's why but anyway, the idea is that we need to inspire people by our actions, not by our talking.
And thank you, Seksan, for being and talking to us today, because this is such a valuable sharing coming from the founder and a volunteer. So Joanne, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that if today's session is actually a real working session, we would have 60, 70 or maybe 80 volunteers on the ground at the same time for a good 2-3 hours here. So I would suggest that all of you that's listening today come to Kebun Bangsa on a Saturday morning, and help us out. Rather than listening to us talking, just go and do it. Eventually, you'll be the one that really understand what's happening on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then learning by doing is actually the best way of appreciating and learning what to do, because then you'll know how easy or how hard, or whether you want to be in it for the long run or not, rather than just keep on talking about it. Okay, now we're going to go for the final question. Okay, so going back to SDGs and climate change. We have been talking about SDGs, climate change, all these big terms, for several years now. And then this is something that is an important focus in universities, in government agencies, in consultancies and projects, even nationwide. And at the same time, things are going on ground, and we know that we have to act locally in order to collectively contribute globally. And at the same time, we've got to start somewhere. Even the small plot of land or ground can contribute to the mass. So the question is, if we talk about carbon footprint and reducing climate change, how does Kebun Bangsa, Kebun Kerinci, and maybe other urban farming initiatives in Malaysia, how do you think it contributes to reduce carbon footprint, especially in the urban areas?
Seksan, you want to answer that?
So we'll take that as Joanne.
Yeah.
You go first.
Yeah,
I won't have to answer, but we'll go Joanne first.
Yeah, like earlier when I brought up climate change, I'm not expert, whatever my understanding was actually research, desktop research online. So, if you ask us what are some of the actions that we can actually do to reduce carbon footprint, that's your question, yeah? Yeah. So
Yes, that's right.
during my presentation and also, the 2 videos, you would have seen, the list of different initiatives that, we are already doing at the moment, but from, collecting organic waste to turning into compost, like Seksan mentioned, in his video saying that, those, if the kitchen waste end up in the landfill, it will create methane gas, that will actually, sort of pollute the environment, to some extent. So, other than that, if you actually restore or even help the environment, to to get back to what it is, by having animals, having, the right type of floras and fauna to actually be, in the same place, that is already what, we're helping, whether it's directly or indirectly. Yeah. So I don't have an exact answer for it because I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in carbon footprint. Yeah. But I think, the little initiative that all of us are doing at the moment is helping to some extent. And also, spreading the philosophy and the ideas of, how we can all take part in this, in the climate crisis. I think that's also quite important. Like I've shared, in the SDG, quality education. It's about, like sharing your knowledge. We may not do a planned advocacy program, but all of us talk about it, on a daily basis to our friends or volunteers, to whoever we talk to. Yeah. So, yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Saxon, would you like to add something?
I think I'm not very good in all this thing regarding all this sustainability or all this climate change, because those are very big things. I think what we are trying to do actually is just to really help to educate, especially children, a new generation of kids who can appreciate all these very small ideas of just helping ourselves, growing our own things, recycling our compost. I think the other thing which probably is not within this all these big goals of us is really to try to understand what is democracy for us, because in the process of just working a little piece of land like that, I think that the education part is very important. It's for educating a new generation of young people who can understand what democracy is and understanding what right is. When we come to, like, for example, defending kebun bangsa from some entitled individuals who think that the kebun should not be there. So those are big ideas, not directly maybe associated with sustainability, but if we really want to do all these things, we have to get into the politics of it. And it is about the politics of the majority. What we are doing is not only for folks in Bangsa, and it's not only for folks in whatever. It is really for folks in the whole of Kuala Lumpur or whole of Malaysia. I don't know how it relates to it, but I think that the politics of all these ideas of us helping ourselves and helping others and working in a multiracial, cooperative fashion, where we take care of people from 2 years old all the way until 90 years old. We take care of different ethnic groups. We take care of different nationalities, whether they are non-documented refugees or they are Malaysians. I think all of them has got a place and a right in a small piece of garden like Kebun Bangsa. Those are, I think, more important things to us. Sustainability goal and things like that, I think I leave it to you guys professional to deal with it. Yeah.
Thank you, San and Joanne. And this goes back to, keep on doing something good, because we never know at which point of what we're doing is actually causing a change in someone's life or contributing to their life in different ways. So I think this is the principle. I love that 10 principles ideation and manifesto. I think we could even have it in our own backyard to remind that it's okay if the birds eat our tomatoes, so that's for them. All right. Okay, so everyone, we have reached to the end of our webinar, and we hope that we are now even more motivated to expand our own kebun, whether in our backyard or communal spaces. And it's okay if you feel that you're not green fingers. There are other ways of how we can contribute. Like Joanne said, she's helping to fix the roof. So there are different ways you can, keep talking about it. You can share to people about these initiatives. And then I think one person cannot do it alone. One organization cannot do it alone. Definitely, we find the ways of platforms that suits to our values and goals, and then collectively do it together. So before we end, we would love to take a group photo. So if everyone could turn on their screen, and then the committee will take their photo. And give your best smiles. And while we're doing that, on behalf of InSAF, OIL, and IUM, we would like to thank Joanne, Seksan, and Kebun Bangsa for sharing with us your experience, lessons learned, and aspirations. And I think some of us have visited Kebun Bangsa, and I hope after this, more of us will visit there. And if Seksan or Joanne happen to be there, we'll definitely, say hi, and then hopefully we can take a full tour of the Kebun. All right, so I'm gonna prompt for the first page first. Maybe the screen might be a bit bigger to the committee. So first page, put on your best smiles. If you have your garden hat, feel free to put on that too. 1, 2, 3. So second page, committee can go to the second page. Another photo. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much again. And thank you everyone who have stayed with us from 9:30 until almost 11:30. And we'll definitely share the recording of this video from the YouTube to other students, other staff, so everyone can benefit from it. Thanks again, Joanne and Seksan. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Goodbye. Have a good day ahead. Take care.
Alhamdulillah, dah settle. Thank you everyone. Thank you our moderator for interesting session.
My pleasure. So I think we're still live on YouTube. Dr. Tia,